Good evening, we are the group B4 and we're gonna present about climate change in the bank sector. We have two articles to discuss. One article of Boston Common Asset Management and another article that is called Adaptações às Mudanças Climáticas no Brasil, o papel do investimento privado. We're gonna compare the climate changing in the bank sector, in the financial sector in Brazil, underdeveloped country, and in the developed country, Europe and USA. The members of the group are me, Lucas Rezende, Matheus Pigato, Matheus Vasconcelos, Matheus Davi, and Matheus Vinicius. First of all, we're gonna talk about what is the impact of climate change in bank sector. But we need to understand how banks are connected to all the changes in the planet climate. All the changes that have been occurred to the weather have a direct effect in a lot of sectors, such as energy and transportation. It is common to think that the bank sector doesn't fit in the list, because it's hard to see a direct impact of the climate change in the ways banks operate. However, banks are tied to every market sector through their leading practice, making them uniquely vulnerable to the climate-related risk. So this means that almost every project in any sector has a participation of a bank, connecting the banking sector with climate changes. So, because of this, it is clear that banks must alter the way they operate, and to do that, they should incorporate climate as specific considerations into their risk management practice and develop long-term climate strategies. The Boston Common Asset Management article Financing Climate Change Carbon Risk in the Bank Sector show us that some banks located in developed countries have already modified how they operate, aiming to reach sustainable ways to operate. But the same article also show us that there are many banks that have not yet come up with strategies that can considerate all the climate change. In Brazil, there is a lot of to be done in this area. The banks in Brazil have not reached sustainable goals. The article Adaptação às Mudanças Climáticas no Brasil, o papel do investimento privado, show us that there are plenty room for these banks to operate in Brazil and to improve themselves in the ways they invest in the modern days. You can see that our discussions is about how banks in the financial capitalism concern themselves to finance projects sustainable. We have the results that the banks in the developing countries, are now considering climate change in their investments. But in underdeveloped countries like Brazil, the banks do not care a lot about this. They just want to see profits. And you can see this is the impact of the investors just in development countries. The banks want to have an image that is sustainable. And to have an image related to a green planet and to a sustainable planet, they want to finance projects that have sustainable ways. You can see for the conclusion that the financial system, which is the biggest system because we live in the financial capitalism, no more in industrial capitalism or in the commercial capitalism. The financial system is just now affected by the climate change and just in developed countries, which is something that other topics, other economic ways are more affected, like transportation and transportation and energy. And you can see that financial system just now are affected by this. And you can see that the banks just in developed countries are concerned about this. And the banks which are the biggest financiers in the world, are just concerned about their image in sustainability and not in the project, because they are not affected, because they just financial, they don't do the project. And this is something that Agenda 2030 talked about. Agenda 2030 predicted that the capitalism in the year of 2030 would be the same capitalism that we live now, and this is something wrong. In 2030, it's predicted to be a big change in the capitalism. We have the fall of the financial capitalism and the rise of the sharing economy. Sharing economy will bring another way to financial projects, a way that is more sustainable. Not just in the economic way, but more sustainable in the ecological way. You can see that crowdfunding decrease the power of the investments of the big banks, and this is something that the Agenda 2030 did not predict, because Agenda 2030 settled that capitalism will be the same thing, and capitalism will not be the same thing in 2030. The economic is something organic, just like Hayek said, economic is not a class you can master in college. So climate change will affect the financial system, but the capitalism is something volatile and something that it self-regulates itself. So capitalism will change, not just because climate is changing, because the world is always changing. And this is something that the Agenda 2030 did not predict. And you can see that just now the climate changes are affecting, and they will be more affectable, but we can see that the banking sector will be so different in 2030 that you cannot predict, you cannot settle something, but will be different, and we will be more concerned about the climate change in the year of 2030. Thank you all.